Good morning to Keep the Faith with Pastor Frank. Uh, Good Monday morning. I hope everyone had a great service yesterday. This morning we're going to be in Numbers chapter 21, and I have a couple of things that I want to share. So, um, we'll. Good morning, Sister Jean. Good to see you online. Pray that you're doing well. So, in Numbers, we'll be in 21. We'll do verses 1 through 9. And if anyone else joins us, there's Sheila. Good morning, Sheila. It's good to see you online. Pray you're doing well. And things are going well for you. So we're going to talk about a couple of things this morning that, again, in Numbers 21, one of the things that has constantly happened as the people were following and continue to follow God is actually in the desert was they would be upset about something. They would start and then say, "Well, why did you lead us out here? We're going to die out here. We had it better in Egypt." And if we're not careful in our life, a lot of times, whenever we face a challenge, we don't really remember the pain and suffering and things that um, happened in the past. And if we're not careful, then what happens is we begin to think we used to have it better than we have it now, especially if you're in a real challenge. So or a real trial, then you and I don't know what it is about us that makes us think backwards instead of forwards. And I know one of the things that when I uh, suffered from severe depression was that one of the things that changed in me, the Lord changed in me, was I stopped looking back at how things were before, and I started seeing that things were going to get better. I was looking forward, and that helped me come out of that severe depression. And so the thing is that, well, I've gotten off on a sidetrack here. Sorry about that. So let's look at Numbers chapter 21. Now, let me just read a few verses here. If anyone else joins us this morning, we'll go ahead and greet them. And just so you know, if you join on the Shield of Faith Assembly on Facebook, I can see what you type. If you join on the Shield of Faith Assembly on YouTube, I can see what you type. If you join on my page, I can't. There's something that I have not learned how to adjust yet that lets you lets me see what you type. So it says Numbers 21:1. And when King Arad the Canaanite, which dwelt in the south, heard that Israel came by the way of the spies, then he fought against Israel and took some of them prisoners. And Israel vowed a vow unto the Lord and said, If thou wilt indeed deliver this people into my hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities. And the Lord hearkened to the voice of Israel and delivered up the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them and their cities. And he called the name of the place Hormah. And they journeyed from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to compass the land of Edom, and the soul of the people was much discouraged because of the way. And the people spake against God and against Moses. Wherefore have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water, and our soul loatheth this light bread. And the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much people of Israel died. Therefore the people came to Moses and said, we've sinned, for we've spoken against the Lord and against thee. And therefore much people came to Moses and said, we have sinned, for we've spoken against the Lord and against thee. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from among us. And Moses prayed for the people, and the Lord said unto Moses, make thee a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and it shall come to pass that every one that is bitten, when he looked upon it, shall live. And Moses made a serpent of brass and put it on a pole, and it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. Now, a few little comments here. You know, one of the things that happened here is that the Canaanites took some Israelites prisoner, and so they said, look, if you'll let us have authority over them, we'll destroy their cities and do everything. And God did that. But what I want to mention is God doesn't any longer use his people to mete out judgment. In fact, he says judgment's reserved for him. And so there's a different way of living and a different way of looking at things that we need to have. And that literally is we need to look at people through the eyes of Christ, through the eyes of love, because things change and God no longer uses us, our believers, or his people, to take vengeance on others. He just doesn't do it, because vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. So we need to remember that we don't need to go on a crusade against people. We need to go on a crusade against the evil one, period. That's it, in the evil that he does. So after they had, of course, defeated the Canaanites, they came to a place, and they had a pretty tough little part of the journey to deal with there. And good morning, Brother Lewis and Sister Gail. Pray you are all doing well. So as they journeyed down Mount Hor by the Red Sea to get around to Edom, they got discouraged, and they started doing like a lot of people do. One, they started griping against the leadership. And I've seen this happen so many times over my many, many, many years in leadership. Once something happens, people start blaming the people that are the leadership. Now, I want you to understand that leadership is not perfect, and many times they are to blame. But then they started complaining against God. God had brought them out in here to kill them. And actually, what they said here was they didn't like God's provision anymore. They wanted a different kind of bread. They wanted all the stuff. But God had continued to provide for them. They had enough to eat. They had enough to drink. They had shoes on their feet. They had robes. They had everything they needed. And plus they had God leading them. So when they began to complain, God sent fiery serpents among the people. And they bit the people, and much people of Israel died. So it says, therefore the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned, for we've spoken against the Lord and against thee. Praying to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. And Moses prayed for the people. So what happens is people are we do understand what happens when we now a lot of times people won't admit that they've done wrong. They just continue to act like they're the ones that are right and God's wrong, or the leadership's wrong. And today, today people, if they start murmuring against the leadership, they just go somewhere else. I mean, we're a very mobile society. We don't have to deal with issues, and sometimes the leadership's glad that happens, and sometimes the people are glad it happens. Sometimes it doesn't work out well, just going somewhere else. Because generally, if you're dissatisfied one place, you're going to be dissatisfied with leadership in another place for long. So these people didn't have anywhere else to go. In fact, unless they followed the Lord, they really wouldn't have any provision. But let's back to the fiery serpents. Now, the fiery serpents were released among the people. Thousands of people died. And so they realized that there was a real possibility they would be bitten by a serpent. And if they were bitten by the serpent, they died. So they wanted Moses to make things right. Now, here's another difference that I want to point out that I think is important for us to realize. The people had to go to Moses to intercede for them for God. We can go to God ourselves. Because of Jesus Christ, we have access to God right straight. We have access, immediate access to God. So we don't have to go to someone else. We can ask forgiveness, and these people did it right. They asked forgiveness of Moses, and they asked get forgiveness from God. So the thing is here, God didn't make it easy on them, and he didn't make it easy on Moses. He said, make a serpent, and you'll lift it up, and people that look on the serpent will live. Now, this is typical of Christ being raised up on the cross, because at one time, it says in the Bible that as the serpent was lifted up in the wilderness, so shall Son of Man be lifted up. And the thing is that we need to realize that we have an opportunity, because Christ has been crucified, raised up. We can look on him, we can have faith, and we can see Christ do great miraculous things in our life, just like happened to these people here. The serpents were the people that were bitten lived. And the thing that we need to realize here is a couple of things that I think that is important for us to realize. One is we don't need to be grumbling against the leadership. I would suggest, if you have something that is, you have a difference with one of the leadership, go talk to that person. And many times I've gone to talk to people and found out my perception was a little bit off. I went and talked to them sometimes and found out that I was right, and that we had differences, but that didn't mean we weren't brothers in the Lord or sisters in the Lord. I went to them sometimes and talked to them, and to be honest with you, had differences that kept us separate. And so two is, the thing is that God's provision is okay for us. It's good for us. We don't need to have something else. God's provision is there. In this particular place, they wanted something more substantial. And I want you to understand, what God had provided them was enough. And not only that, he blessed them too, but we got to be careful of wanting something that seems just out of your reach, because if you're not careful, you start grumbling against God because you can't have what you think other people have. But remember, what God gives us is enough. And the third thing is, realize that no matter what happens in our life, no matter what challenge we face, what we face, look to Christ. Look to Christ. He is the one that's going to make the things right. He's the one that's going to make our sins go away. He's the one that's going to make our challenges calm down. He's the one that's going to make a way for us when there doesn't seem to be a way. He's the one that's going to lift us up when we're down. He's the one that's going to continue to keep us and lead us and guide us, and let his grace be upon us and his love flow through us and help us touch the lives of other people. So just as that serpent was lifted up in every, when things start getting around us and messing with us, look to Jesus Christ, because he's the one that's got the answers that we need. So this morning, I just thought I'd share that. Just remember, God doesn't use us to take vengeance anymore. That's his. So always remember that, even when you have a tendency to get upset about the way people do things, or the things, let God handle things. And remember that God's provision is there for us. I still recognize that God provides for us, continues his provision. And remember, don't be talking about God's leaders or God, or you'll wind up with a bunch of serpents in the middle of it. You'll wind up with a bunch of challenges. So the thing is, this morning, God is taking us on a path, and that path sometimes doesn't take us the easy way. It takes us the way that we need to go, so God can teach us some things that we need to know. God bless you this morning. Keep the faith. I'll see you in the morning, God willing.